Today's video is all about survival games and they all comes in different shapes and sizes. For an example, we got open world survival games, survival crafting games, horror survival games, zombie survival games and even battle royale games. But today we are mainly focused on the open world survival and survival horror games. So today we're gonna discuss about 20 of the best survival games that you should play right now in 2024, including 10 awesome free-to-play options as well as 10 different paid recommendations. So whether you wanna spend some money on a survival game or just wanna play completely free-to-play games, I got you covered in today's video. So let's quickly check out all of these games, starting with the free-to-play options. First of all, we got the brand new game called Ocean World Eden Crafters. The game just got released onto the Steam about a month ago, but remember this is only a free kind of a prologue version for their upcoming title Eden Crafters. But right now a lot of people are jumping in, trying the game out and having very positive reviews on Steam. It's an open world survival game where the game is challenging you to turn this hostile planet into a habitable haven for humanity, and as a player you have to locate major resources like water, gather materials, craft essential tools, ultimately build kind of a foundation for the civilization. It's a game that you can play both single player as well as co-op. Definitely a fun and a very unique survival game to check out right now. When we talk about free to play survival games, Muck is a game that we simply cannot forget about. It's very simple, addictive, extremely fun with friends, and overall has a very unique art style. The game was actually developed by our favorite YouTuber Danny, but unfortunately haven't really updated the game ever since. It was a pretty popular game back in like mid 2021. It got all the cool mechanics for a typical survival games like collecting resources, crafting items and base building, and also some survival role-like elements, and your simple goal is to survive as long as possible with the resources that you find around the island. At the daytime it's feel like a pretty cool and chill typical survival game, but at the night time it's going to be super challenging where you have to face against various type of enemies, and it is extremely fun to play with your friends. Still a very popular game on Steam, having close to like 2000 daily concurrent players, and also an extremely well optimized game for low-end PCs and laptops. And with the recent release of the popular Fallout TV show, this free-to-play games kind of blew up in popularity, and that is the Fallout Shelter. It's a completely free-to-play survival game, was there for a very long time, but nobody really cared until the TV show releases, and at that time the all-time peak player count was more than 8,000 players, which is absolutely insane. Still very popular, holding on to about 2,000 daily concurrent players, but I would say this game more of a base building, resource management style of a game rather than a typical survival game, but it's an extremely fun and unique game to play, especially if you are coming from the Fallout universe, and it's a completely a single player game as well. And also the game can absolutely run even if you have a potato PC or a laptop. Alright, next up we got Arid, an amazing little open world survival game, and if I said this game was made by a bunch of university students, you probably wouldn't believe me, but I think it's very impressive. It's a single player open world exploration style of a survival game where you simply have to explore this massive mining network and discover the hidden mysteries inside this Atacama desert. The game does have a pretty unique day and night cycle. At the daytime it's extremely important to survive from this harsh environment and avoid dehydration, extreme temperature, sun exposure and other natural dangers. It's a relatively short single player survival game that you can play completely solo, and it will take you about 10 hours to complete, and overall system requirements are very much acceptable. Moving on, next up we got a pretty cool little Minecraft style of a survival game called Zombie Blocks 2. I don't know how many of you guys actually heard about this game, but it's very fun to play. It's a very simple kind of open world zombie survival game with a very blocky, cute looking art style and pretty satisfying gunplay with a great variety of melee and range weapons. The map is kind of a semi-open world city with procedurally generated environment where you can gather loot, resources and ultimately upgrade your loadout while surviving from the enemy hordes in this island. It's a single player survival game where you can play both third person as well as on first person view, and also a pretty solid game to run even if you have a very low end system. Moving on, next up we got a couple of very well established free to play survival games on Steam, even though they are a little bit old but still worth mentioning in 2024, starting with a game called Stay Out. It's a free to play open world survival MMO style of a game, kind of similar to other games like Stalker, and a very much hardcore experience compared to some of the other typical survival games on the market. And the game involves you with urban exploration, crafting, gathering resources and also a little bit of mystery solving in this dark post-apocalyptic universe. Even though the game is initially released back in 2019, the game is still receiving continuous update from the developers and holding on to some decent concurrent player numbers even in 2024. Definitely a very solid free-to-play option to check out right now. Very similar to our previous game, next up we got another game that is very well established on Steam and also have a very similar backstory, and that is the Will built to live online. It's another free-to-play post-apocalyptic survival game with a massive open world to explore and have to do a lot of gathering, hunting resources, crafting, and also trading with other players is a major part of this game. There's also different quest lines that you can complete in the game which ultimately result you with valuable resources, and along the way you will have to fight against other enemies that widely spread in this massive wasteland, at the same time interacting with other survivors just like you. It's a great survival game to check out right now on Steam, and you can download the game completely free to play. Lost Light is a multiplayer, free to play, kind of a looter shooter style of a game with survival elements, and a game that a lot of you guys recommend me to check out very recently. I did play this game earlier at launch and I did really like it because it's basically like a mobile shooter, but it does seem like the game is in a pretty good state nowadays with all the updates coming to the game, and it is very much popular, having close to like 3,000 daily concurrent players right now. It is primarily an extraction style of a game rather than a typical survival game, but the gameplay loop does include a lot of scavenging, looting, gathering resources, and ultimately upgrade your weapons to a loadout, and also there is different set of missions that you can complete for different rewards, and there's a massive arsenal of firearms with a lot of customization, and on top of that the game does support both first person and third person perspective. The game is right now sitting at mixed reviews on Steam. I personally didn't really enjoy the game that much, but seems like some of you guys actually enjoying the game, so it's free to play. Definitely give it a try. Alright, moving on, at number 2 we got an extremely popular survival game, and a game that a lot of you guys probably already played before, and that is Unturned. I gotta be honest, it was the most popular free to play survival game up until very recently. It was overthrown by another game which we'll discuss about in a minute. And Unturned is a free to play multiplayer open world zombie survival game, still very much popular on Steam, having more than 30,000 daily concurrent players, which is absolutely insane. The game is themed around this zombie survival post-apocalyptic universe, but compared to some of the other hardcore survival games which we already mentioned in our video, this is a much more of a casual, fun experience that you can enjoy with your friends. The game has all the typical survival mechanics like hunting, gathering resources, upgrading, building your own base, while interacting with other survivors that you will find in the open world. During the last couple of months, we have seen a massive decrease of the player numbers, but still very popular on Steam, absolutely worth trying out in 2024, and the game can also run on a very low-end PC or a laptop without any issues. Alright, moving on to the number 1 spot, we got the best free survival game you can play right now, and that is the Once Human. It is a completely free to play multiplayer open world survival game with a very unique and strange post-apocalyptic theme, something we haven't really seen on any other survival game on the market. The game has a very interesting backstory where all the living things in the planet, including humans, plants, and animals, are completely invested by an alien creature called Stardust. And as a metahuman who can survive in this contamination, you simply have to explore this massive open world and try to survive and rebuild the civilization as you are the last hope for the planet. The game also got typical survival gameplay elements like gathering resources, crafting, upgrading, and build your own home base, and at the same time different enemy variants and the bosses that you find in this game is extremely cool, and visually the game look absolutely stunning. It's a game that you can play single player as well as online co-op, but to get the best out of this game you need to have a bunch of friends to play alongside with you, and there's no doubt the game is super popular right now on Steam, having more than 60,000 mostly positive reviews, and right now having close to 170,000 daily concurrent players. Well, there you have it. These are all my personal favorite best survival games you can play right now for completely free, but now it's time for us to move on to some paid recommendations. And I gotta be honest, if you wanna spend some money finding some best survival games on Steam, there are literally hundreds of them out there, and all of these survival games that I'm gonna mention today are according to my personal preference. So let's start with number 10. We got an awesome indie title called Murky Divers. It's an online co-op underwater survival game with horror elements. In this game, you and your friends have to dive into this underwater experimental laboratory, and you have to find the missing employees and their failed experiments. And also you got your own submarine which kind of works as your home base, but when you drop into underwater it's extremely challenging, quite dark, and filled with dangerous creatures ready to kill you. You can play this game both multiplayer and also 4-player co-op, and also it does support proximity voice chat, make this game even more fun to play. Definitely a very unique horror slash survival game to check out right now, and also it's very cheap on Steam. And when we're talking about survival game, this game is literally one of the best out there right now, and that is Green Hell. It's a very immersive open world survival simulation set in the extreme hard condition of the uncharted Amazon forest. The typical survival mechanics that are implemented in this game is extremely deep, and you have to use every single survival technique that you might use in the real life in order to survive in this game. It is that much immersive. You have to hunt down animals for food, gather resources, craft and build your own home shelter, at the same time fighting against other enemies, animals, as well as different indigenous who live in this jungle. It's a relatively challenging game if you decide to play the game completely solo single player. There's also an option to play online co-op as well. It is hands down one of the best survival games out there right now and still receiving continuous updates to the game, which is always great to see. Another awesome survival game that I initially got the chance to play is the Sons of the Forest, earlier released as an early access title but very recently got the 1.0 update, and it is very much popular right now on Steam. It's an open world survival game where you and your friends sent into this remote island to find the missing billionaire, and surviving in this remote island is extremely challenging. An island is filled with various type of weird cannibals who live there for a very long time, and they will literally attack you on sight. It's another simulation style of a survival game and extremely fun to play if you got bunch of friends to play alongside with you, but you can completely enjoy the game single player solo as well. If you're someone who like to go back in time and enjoy some of the historical aesthetic, next up we get a really awesome survival game called Medieval Dynasty. And as the name suggests, the game set in this pretty harsh medieval fantasy setting and immerse you into this historical age with lot of cool gameplay mechanics. And similar to other survival games, you have to go on hunting, gathering resources, building your own home base, and ultimately ensure the long-lasting prosperity of your community. It is definitely not as challenging as our previous couple of games, but still a very immersive, kind of like an ultimate medieval experience. Right now the game is having very positive reviews on Steam and overall system requirements are also quite acceptable. If you're into more realistic hardcore survival experience, next up we got one of the best and one of the most well-established survival games on Steam right now, and that is Scum. It's another massive open world survival game with literally 100 plus different gameplay elements, and it is way more complex compared to some of the other survival games on the market. The game has a very punishing environment, deep gameplay mechanics, and definitely one of the most complex games to get into, especially if you are just a beginner on survival games. But if you want to go through the hard punishing early hours and learn all the gameplay mechanics, it is going to be a very rewarding experience. And right now the game is having mostly positive reviews on Steam and also having over 21,000 plus daily concurrent players. Definitely worth check it out, especially if you are looking for a super hardcore survival experience. After a very long time being an early access title on Steam, 7 Days to Die finally released its 1.0 update about a week ago, and right now it's kind of blowing up in popularity on Steam, having more than 114,000 daily concurrent players. It's a very immersive sandbox style of a zombie survival game set in this brutally unforgiving post-apocalyptic world overrun by the undead, and it's a nice combination between a first-person shooter, survival horror, and also sandbox style of a RPG. There's a massive open world to explore for loot and gathering resources. Ultimately, you have to craft your weapons, clothes, armor, and different tools, and ultimately design and build your home base with different electrical traps, turrets, automated doors, and different gadgets that help you to defend against the undead. If you're into this type of zombie survival game, it's one of the best out there right now, and literally there's no any better time to check it out since the 1.0 update just dropped on Steam. I don't know if we can add No Man's Sky as a survival game, but still one of the best open world exploration games out there right now. And the game recently got a massive update with a brand new visual overhaul. A lot of people are jumping in and trying the game out for the first time, so I feel like I want to add this game to our today's list. It is literally the best exploration game out there right now on Steam, where the game allows you to explore this massive procedurally generated galaxy with 100 plus planets, biomes, plants, and animals. You can easily spend 1,000 plus hours in this game. With this next generation visual overhaul the game got recently, a lot of people have a reason to jump back into, and the game is super popular right now on Steam, having close to like 40,000 daily concurrent players, and it is hands down the best time to check out the game if you haven't already. After the initial hype having more than 2 million daily players, Palworld is kinda died down in popularity. Nowadays it's holding on to about 50,000 daily concurrent players, but it's a very fun and unique open world crafting survival game with Pokemon-like characters called pals. The game has a pretty fun and deep gameplay mechanics involving these pals, including a lot of survival exploration, base building, farming, hunting, automated resource gathering, and also you can trade these pals with your friends, which is pretty cool. It's another game that you can literally spend 100 plus hours on, and also about a month ago the game got a massive update with a lot of brand new content, so if you haven't played the game already, now is a great time to jump in. Alright, next up at number 2 we got a survival game that absolutely need no introduction, and that is the Rust. It's another massive open world survival crafting game where you literally start from the scratch and you have to survive day and day out inside this massive island. And just like our previously mentioned games comes, Rust is also a pretty hardcore survival game, and it's another very difficult game to get into, especially if you are just beginner and just playing as solo. I spent about 20 hours playing the game, and it is kind of difficult for me to understand the gameplay gameplay mechanics, and just starting out is very hard, especially if you're just playing solo by yourself. As a beginner, you definitely need to have all the help you can get, so I would recommend playing with at least a couple of friends who know how to play the game, and your overall experience is going to be much better and much more rewarding. It is always a super popular game on Steam, very positive reviews, and also system requirements are very much acceptable. Alright, moving on to our number 1 spot, we got DayZ, extremely popular open world zombie survival game with a massive community behind it. It's another very hardcore survival game, and as a survivor, you must try to endure the post-apocalyptic world populated by these infected, and also interact with other survivors in the open world, make friends with them, kill them, or just completely ignore them. It's all up to you. The massive open world the game represents you is extremely challenging, and other than the infected and the survivors in the open world, you have to fight against the wildlife like bears, wolves, and harsh environment and weather condition, and also you have to maintain your hunger, thirst, and body temperature, which is something you have to continuously keep your eye on. Overall, it's one of the best hardcore survival games to check out right now. Very popular on Steam, very positive reviews, definitely worth trying out in 2024. Well, there you have it guys. These are my personal favorite 20 of the best survival games to play right now in 2024, including both paid and free to play games. And if you got any suggestions about your favorite survival games, definitely let us know down in the comments section. And as always guys, if this video helpful to you, don't forget to go ahead and drop a like on the video and also subscribe. Stay tuned to the channel because we cover tons of content like this. I will catch you guys soon in the next one. Stay safe.